Good morning and welcome back to the Sage Sorority. I'm your host, Shantel Russo. Happy Thursday. How are we all doing today, guys? I hope you're all doing fabulous. It is officially July 31st. You guys, we have one more month left of summer. I cannot believe it. I feel like it was just yesterday. I was sitting in Dubai and talking to you guys. This month has zoomed by for me, which is kind of crazy. I also want to give a little shout out to me and this beautiful community because today is episode 25 of the Sage Sorority podcast. I can't believe it. I mean, 25 episodes is pretty young in the podcasting world, but I did make a TikTok and a reel recently saying that you're automatically in the top 20% of podcasts ever published simply by hitting publish on episode 11. Because most podcasts don't make it past episode 10 and even more podcasts don't make it past episode 3. So obviously I'm super proud of myself, and the fact that this has been weekly is an even larger accomplishment. I saw those numbers and I gave myself a pat on the back for my consistency and showing up every week. And it's not easy. I can actually make a podcast on the business of podcasting and podcasting as a whole when I feel like I have more under my belt, because it is a question I've gotten a few times recently. But there's a reason why people want to do podcasting only if they have a team, because it is a lot of work. I think conceptualizing a pod regularly, whether that's every week or bi-weekly, editing, all the social work that involves reels and captions and posts and promoting the show and all that stuff is a lot. Even though I don't have guests, that's another element. Finding guests, booking them, doing all that. Video is another element, having the space, affordability, editing, making sure sound and video are always in sync. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to a podcast. So when you hit subscribe or you hit follow or you leave a 5-star review, it goes a lot into promoting the show, growing the show, and also letting the host know that you value their work. So yeah, that's my intro for today. With that said, please rate, subscribe, follow, all of the things. You can find the Sage Sorority on both TikTok and Instagram and Substack. If you subscribe on Spotify, go ahead and give us a subscription on Apple, and also subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review and let us know how much you love the show. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So as you can tell by the title, we're talking about friendships today. This is part, I think, 3 in the Sisterhood Chronicles. For those of you that are new, the Sisterhood Chronicles is a series within the Sage Sorority pod that discusses the juicy, magnificent, nuanced, and very confusing world of female friendships. So today we're doing a little friendship audit, and these are several signs that I think it's time to maybe reassess your relationship with your friend. Now, I hate disclaimers in content and podcasts and all that. I actually hate it because I feel like media literacy is at an all-time low. And if you're an adult, you should know how to read between the lines, develop your own nuance and context into things, take things with a grain of salt, chew on what you like, leave the rest. What I want to say is that relationships of all calibers and all levels are beautifully, messily nuanced. There is rarely a clear villain or clear victim in friendship dynamics, okay? These are people just being people with different traumas and attachment styles and desires and wants and shadow work and communication patterns and ways of showing love and ways of showing disdain, etc. So I say that because I want you to be able to use context and nuance from what I'm saying into your own life, and that things are very rarely just super black and super white. Okay. The friendship audit is just really a tool for you to be recognizing patterns over time and essentially auditing and just going through your actual relationships as opposed to just being on autopilot. Right? Similar to what we talked about, I forget the episode, in not just doing things for the sake of doing it, but doing things intentionally and on purpose. This is just a very loose framework of understanding why certain friendships may feel draining and others might feel super uplifting and inspiring. And it's also permission to be intentional about where you invest your time, your energy, your money, your resources. What it is not is an immediate jumpstart reaction or excuse to cut people off after one infraction, okay? It is not like a black and white checklist where one yes means the friendship is over or one no means the friendship is thriving. And it's not an excuse to avoid having difficult conversations with people that you care about. This is probably the most important thing. And I think that this is something we all could do a lot better at when it comes to friendships, myself included, is being comfortable having difficult conversations. It's something that you are kind of forced to in an intimate relationship. I feel like we save whatever gusto we have for that, and then everything else goes by the wayside. Parents, siblings, work, and friendships. And it's just not the way to have thriving, long-lasting relationships. In that same breath, know that there's some times where a conversation is just not needed. It might not be effective, and what's unsaid is unsaid for a reason, and it's a way to keep the peace in a way that doesn't feel like it's sacrificial. I hope that makes sense. The truth about red flags in friendship is that most of these signs need to show up consistently, maybe over weeks, months, or years, to truly indicate a problematic dynamic or a mismatch. You know, a friend forgetting to follow up on your job interview is not this like do or die type of thing. It's probably just life being busy and everyone is always thinking about themselves. But the same friend never following up on anything important to you over the course of a year, something completely different. Context is everything. A friend going through a divorce or death or moving is probably going to be a little self-absorbed and a little bit detached because they have a lot going on. Someone with social anxiety might struggle with initiation, but deeply value your friendship, right? You might be inviting them out to dinners and brunches and they're always saying no and you're not really getting it. But if it's a one-on-one coffee, they're there. It's probably because it's just not her thing, not because she doesn't care about you or doesn't want to be a good friend to you and vice versa. Cultural differences can absolutely affect how people express care and interest. I've also noticed like inflection and tone and all those things can be very cultural as well. And just different life seasons, right? Parenthood, toddlerhood, new parenthood, career changes, health struggles, aging parents, things like that can naturally shift friendship dynamics. And also sometimes people are going through things that they just don't want to share and they're more comfortable dealing with it on their own time and to themselves. Of course, you're not a mind reader and nor should you be, but it's something worth considering. Basically, in all your relationships, you want to look for patterns, not necessarily like incidents, right? Now, incidents can be an indication of a pattern, in which case you're still looking at the pattern, right? The incident is just magnifying it for you. You want to note things that happen more often than not isolated behaviors. And the goal isn't to cut people off or to find a reason to do that. It's to understand yourself and your relationships more clearly so you can show up more intentionally for the ones that you want to. Everything in life with intention, right? Like you can go to class, do the lessons, sit in the lectures, but the test and the real marker of do you know this information? Have you retained this information? And can you apply this information, just like school, is in the test, right? Is in real life. That is how you do it. And for us as humans, that is in our relationships. This is how these things show up. And this is how you know if you're applying and grasping what you have been taught. Some friendships need boundaries. Some need honest conversations. Some need distance. Some need a little bit more fun. And yes, sometimes some do need to end. Maybe not forever, but at least for right now. But most often, it's just a little bit more clarity on who you are and what you want, who they are, and also who they are not. So you can love people appropriately and protect your peace and energy wisely. Okay? That was a very long explanation and disclaimer, but I really hope that I gave you a little bit more context to the framework so that you can make better decisions with the information I'm going to present. Okay? That was a lot of word jumble. So let's dive in. So I've got like 3 different tiers and hopefully this makes sense. I think it should, but it's just kind of to break things down and make it just like easier to explain. So first tier, we just have like an energy imbalance. And this is really about effort and initiative. And I do want to highlight that these friendships aren't necessarily toxic. They're just not mutual. And I think that we can often conflate the two when we're just talking to friends or online. There's a mismatch. And I've mentioned it before, but one thing I've learned through my research in female friendships is that reciprocity is a huge thing for women. Like men, not so much. It doesn't rank as high for them. But reciprocity is huge for women. Like, whatever you are to me, I have to be to you. And I can even speak to myself. I'm big on that because I feel like, again, there ends up being a mismatch of energies and effort, and it's just not worth like the headache. So, number one, the initiator test. So, are you always the one reaching out, always the one making effort, always the one putting in plans, et cetera, et cetera? This is a really clear and easy dynamic to kind of figure out. One day you wake up and you're like, I feel like I'm always chasing her, or I'm always the one like making plans and putting things into motion. The easiest way to test this is to just stop. Like, just stop. And if silence follows and it consistently follows, then that's your answer. That doesn't mean that you guys are not friends anymore. Sometimes it does mean you're not friends anymore because you'll never hear from this person again. But it does mean that there could be an energy imbalance and you just have to move appropriately. You're going to know where you stand with someone very quickly if you're always making plans and they're never making plans. They're either going to notice that you haven't made plans and follow up with their own plans. You guys will still maintain some sort of connection, but plans never really happen, or you don't hear from them ever again. That's an easy one. Number two, you're consistently included, but only last minute or like as a backup option. So this looks like maybe she's not like your best friend, or maybe she is, I don't know. And it's like, hey, babe, we're going to XYZ on Thursday at 8. Do you want to come? Sometimes it's like, yeah, great. Like, I don't have to make a plan. I don't have to think about a plan. This is the plan. Do you want to come or not? Cool. But it could also feel like, okay, so we can never make plans together. It just seems like I have to be folded into plans you already have. Or if someone bails, then it's like, you remember me. And again, doesn't mean that it's not a good friendship. It just means that the energy imbalance is different. And I say imbalance because if these things are happening in your friendship, but you don't even notice, then that means there's no imbalance. How she's treating you is exactly how you're treating her. So there is no issue. The issue is when you feel like maybe you want more or you've tried to do more in the friendship, and this is like the hole that you keep getting pegged in. Obviously, this might feel like you're grateful to be included because you value the friendship and you do want to do XYZ, but you notice you're never really in the original plan. So it's just something to think about. And if it is an issue, you can make that effort to expand the friendship and see what happens. Number three, she listens in the moment, but never circles back to your important updates. Obviously, we have a caveat. We have several. We talked about this in the intro. But, you want to pay attention to people that just don't really seem to be actively listening to what you're saying, and they just don't really care outside of the initial conversation. Like things like you're trying for a baby, or you mentioned a really big presentation, or you got a promotion, or your family's coming to town and you're really nervous, or you're going to introduce your boyfriend to your family, or whatever. Like, they don't really follow up. And it's often because it could be because they're just not interested. It could be because they're not active listeners. This is a very big thing. I think our attention spans are so short these days. Is it a do or die, like you're not a good friend? No, not necessarily. But I know if I'm being honest with you guys, like that's probably someone that I would just stop telling those major things to, because I feel like a good friend would remember that and would want to discuss it further with you. It's just something to think about, like all of these tips. Number 4, great energy in person, but completely absent between hangouts. Again, I think this is truly just an energy difference. And this I would classify as like your party friend. So your party friend, your social friend, is a friend that you go out with and you have a great time. You guys can literally plan a dinner and then drinks and then end up at the club. And, what started as like a 5 p.m. happy hour has now gone to you getting home at 4 a.m. Amazing. But you literally like never hear from her if you're not like planning to go out or you're already out. To me, that's a party friend. And I think classifications are very important. And if you're fine with that, then keep it as that. If you want to expand the relationship and you're noticing that there's an imbalance, then that's different. And maybe at one point, this person was a lot closer to you and they have now regressed into a party social friend. Again, acceptance is huge in relationships, and you can always make that effort to expand the friendship. Like maybe you don't want to go to the club or you don't want to go out at night. Let's do Pilates together. Let's go to the gym, or fuck it, let's get a matcha and just go for a walk. you'll know kind of how they feel about you and or those kind of things, assuming they're doing these things with other people based on their reaction. So what you really want to know is, does this friendship exist outside of scheduled meetups? And sometimes it doesn't. You have to decide if that's okay. Okay, so now we get into a little bit more textured situations in friendships. I would say like very conditional and transactional. And these are some things to notice. On a lighter note, you could say people that are very active with you on social media, but in real life, they don't really have much to say. I am of two minds about this. I have friends that are active on my social media that I don't talk to every day. It's not an issue for me. I know that that's kind of like a little bit of a gripe for some people, like very high, like public engagement. But when it comes to like IRL, they don't really have much to say. Again, all things have a bit of like nuance to it, but I understand the hesitation with that because are we real friends or is this just posturing and presentation for you? Which some people, it definitely is. Another issue can be the trauma dumping, AKA the personal therapy, AKA the conversation monopolizer. So this is something I have been on the receiving end of many times in my life. And I also want to say that everyone has different strengths. And when it comes to yapping and giving good conversation and in-depth conversation, it's my thing, right? I mean, that should come as no surprise to anyone listening because who I am on the pod is very much who I am in real life. So, of course, I understand when friends may gravitate towards me when it comes to advice and context. And, one of my friends says, I like to talk to you because you're smart. So, which I find like, I don't know, that's a very like plain sentence because it makes me laugh because I feel like, like everyone is smart. I would never have a dumb friend, I guess. But it just was very frank when she says it. I like to talk to you because you're smart. So, like I get it. But as someone who is that person, it can also be very exhausting when that is all that the relationship is. It's just you sitting there and giving someone life coaching basically every time that you talk to them. I love giving advice and I love sharing what I know and being of service to my friends, but I'm also not a therapist. You know what I mean? If you are feeling like that, I think that's something you definitely have to talk to your friend about because I would assume you have somewhat of a relationship. If she feels comfortable always trauma dumping, I think you have to carve time out for yourself if you even feel like she's someone you want to quote unquote trauma dump with as well. I think you have to see really how you feel after your interactions. Friendships cannot be one-sided no matter what. No matter what I say in this episode, relationships can't be one-sided. It is a give and take. It might not always be 50-50, but it is a give and take. If you feel like at the end of the day, your friend is just taking and not really giving, then obviously that's something that is worth discussing. Number 7, this is more of a networking thing. We'll call it the network absorber. She benefits from your connections, but you never gain access to hers. This is a really big one. And oddly enough, guys, this is a bigger thing for me now in my 30s than it ever was in my 20s. And not because, you know more people in your 30s. No, that's not it. Like in my 20s, like everyone was hustling too. So that wasn't an issue. I just feel that in your 20s, there is more of a congenial spirit when it comes to networking. And that's something that I have noticed has really changed in my 30s. And I do have to preface that I haven't lived in Toronto in my 30s, so I don't know if it would have been different. And I didn't live in London in my 20s. So I do want to add that asterisk because I do think it's worth mentioning. So I think that this is a tricky one. And I wish I had a clear answer. And I'll be completely honest, I don't. I think that, so I believe a lot of things. Tinks always says strong opinions loosely held. And I love that. Although a part of me is also like, I have strong opinions that are also strongly held. I can't help it. Like I said at the top of the episode, reciprocity in a relationship is very important to me. I could not be close friends with someone that I feel like is happy to benefit off of something that I'm giving freely and they are not willing to do the same. I also want to mention that you can't get blood from a stone. So you need to know if you are expecting something from someone that they just don't have. And I've been on the receiving end of that. And I think it's really unfair and it's really petty because friendships are also not tit for tat and it's not this checklist. These are people and they're very nuanced and dynamic, as are you. And these are relationships. So again, you can't get blood from a stone. Like, if someone doesn't have those networks and they don't have those connections for whatever reason, you can't be mad at them that they don't have something that you're giving because she's probably giving you something that you don't have. I hope that's not like word jumbly and it makes sense, but this is like something that has happened in my life, like I said, in my 30s, that I do think is worth mentioning. One thing I also often say is that there are two types of women in this world, and this is a very like clear and black and white thing in my opinion. There's those that believe in abundance mindset and there's those that believe in scarcity mindset. Women that have scarcity mindset are the worst type of friends. Their friendships are usually very conditional and you might roll well for a few months, but then it'll shift. And there's just not a lot of like pleasant consistency. Women that operate from an abundance mindset, I think, are the best people to be friends with because there's no skin off their back and they know that God, the universe, insert whatever deity you believe in, will always provide. And there's literally more than enough in this world. Someone having $1 million does not mean that you have now lost $1 million. And I think that women, for many reasons, have a hard time wrapping their head around it. Men do too, but again, I don't talk to the men, I talk to the babes. So this is all to say that anyone who hoards, whether in speech or in action or in vibe or whatever, it's just not someone that you want in your inner circle. If you have these moments, I seriously implore you to look within and know where that's coming from. Anyways, I went on a long tangent about this. Obviously, you can tell, trigger warning, but I do think that this is a big tell-all with women. And I think that if you feel like you have a friend who is doing this to you and it's really obvious, and again, there's patterns of this, I can't say if it's worth mentioning because I really do believe that this is how some people operate and this is how they believe they can get ahead. But you can bet your fucking bottom dollar it's going to rub off on you and now you are going to withhold as well. So if that's what you want to do, then rock on with the friendship. But if you know that you don't want to get sucked into that vortex, you may have to add some distance. A quick heads up that I'm opening up a few one-to-one coaching spots this summer. If you've been in your head about work, relationships, or what's next, and you just want to talk it out with someone who will actually listen and won't bombard you with a bunch of buzzwords, this might be for you. Honestly, summer is the perfect time to reset. Things slow down, inboxes get a lot more quiet, and that space can either spiral into overthinking or be the moment where you finally shift something in your life. You can book a one-off session with me or a monthly series. All the details are in the show notes. I look forward to talking. Bye. Number 8. This is the fair weather friend. So someone that is there for all the highs, but the lows, they are nowhere to be found. This definitely speaks more to that person than it does your relationship and you. Some people are just not comfortable with negative emotions. And I think it's very odd, especially at our age, because no one gets through life unscathed. One of my favorite quotes. So it's like she's going to have her own losses. She's already had her own losses. She's got more losses coming up, unfortunately, because that's just the way life works. So that's very disappointing if you can't really count on someone when you're in a low moment. Again, I would immediately just downgrade the friendship because that's also not someone that I would feel super comfortable talking to about my low moments if they just don't have the capacity to hold it. You can only ever meet someone as deep as they're willing to meet themselves. So let that be your guidance. And then finally, tier 3. So this is more about emotional security, emotional safety. And I think these are more of the obvious, but more impactful ways that really trigger you needing to audit a friendship. Number 9 is good news makes her visibly uncomfortable and or competitive. Now, this is a tough one. I've been really blessed that I don't think I've ever really had this, but I've had like extensions of this. I think that a lot of this comes down to like who we are and how we manage ourselves. And I am all about being inspired by the people around you. We have no problem being inspired by strangers. I think your friends and your family and your close people, close confidants should inspire you. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that it's about energy shift and response. You can be supportive of someone even though you're going through a hard time. And this goes back to immediately what I was saying, which is abundance versus scarcity. Like now you know that XYZ is possible for someone in your inner circle. Why wouldn't you be next? Or why isn't your turn coming? I think that's really important. I'm not going to sit here and say toxic positivity because, yeah, if you are unemployed and you've been on welfare or you're on benefits and you've been looking for a job for 6 months and your friend just casually says that she went to the mall one day to get leggings and a recruiter started talking to her, told her to interview for this amazing role that's like double her salary, of course you're going to be like, what the fuck is happening in the world? Why hasn't that happened to me when I so desperately need it? I get it. But you have to be mindful and you have to manage your emotions effectively and appropriately if you care about this friendship. And this goes back to something I say often, which is respond, don't react. And I know that's hard because we're humans, but it is important. That's all I can say is like, it's important. And it's okay to take breaks and maybe like take a moment, but with your friend, be honest. Like if this is someone you care about in a relationship you care about, be like, I am so happy for you. And I need that to happen for me like ASAP. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like honor her and her moment. Don't take away from it. And you can also honor yourself. But it's when like you change the subject or you get off the phone or you don't say anything supportive or congratulatory. Like you just look like a fucking hater. And that's going to put your friend in a really bad situation and a bad feeling. And also everyone has their moment. And sometimes it's not your moment. But when it is your moment, you're going to want the support and the good vibes of the people around you. It's just really important to think about, you know? What goes up must come down. Everyone has their day. Next is the loyalty test. Now, there's a few ways that loyalty can be tested, and I'm not saying it in an active way, but number 10 is about she doesn't defend or support you when you're not present. This is tough. This is tough, and this is something I've also gone through. I have had situations in the past recent years where maybe we have a group of friends and we're all friends, and then me and someone else fall out, or me and two people like fall out or whatever. And you've kind of got like a friend or two friends that are just kind of in the middle. I'll be honest, it's very hard to be close friends with someone who is close friends with someone that I don't speak to. Like it can be done. I think it requires radical honesty and loyalty on both parts and a very clear line, you know? I think what gets complicated is when people just say, I don't want to get involved because it's just not possible. You are involved because you have a decent relationship with both sides. It's not the ideal situation, and I have a lot of empathy for anyone who's in that situation on either side. But I do think that if someone is criticizing your friend or saying something that is deeply unkind and or untrue, and you sit and you nod, that is a problem. And in that moment, you are choosing your own comfort and that person's discomfort, the person who's telling you these things, over your friendship. And there's no other way to slice it. I'm not someone that respects excessive neutrality. I think there's a time and place for saying, like, I'm not going to get involved and I don't have an opinion to share. But excessive neutrality is not something that I respect. Now, everyone's different, but that would be an issue for me. And it has been an issue for me in the past. Real friends, real loyal friends protect your reputation and your name, even when you're not around and even when you cannot. And that I don't think is up for debate. But if you have a nuanced take, I would love to hear it. So DM me on Instagram so we can talk. So next is also like kind of what I talked about earlier, like an emotional kind of in and out. So you're having a hard time, she disappears and only comes back when things are good and happy. Again, you can only meet someone as deep as they're willing to meet themselves. Not all friends are going to be with you in the trenches. That's okay. Not all people have the capacity for that. But for me, like, I need to be able to talk to my close friends about hard times. And I need to know that 1, they can hold space for me. 2, it's not going to go anywhere. And 3, they're not judging me. I need that for my close friends. If you can't do that, you're probably not going to be a close friend for me. Life isn't always like daisies and roses. And I don't want to be in intimate community with someone who only wants that from me. You eventually just learn not to depend on her during vulnerable moments. Will it change the friendship? I think so. Maybe not for you, but it is something to think about because ultimately, emotionally, you know that you are not safe with that person in certain ways. And then finally, anyone that you have to walk on eggshells with, like censoring yourself, rehearsing conversations, avoiding certain things just because of defensiveness, I think is really tough and is hard for a close relationship. Obviously, we are humans and there's lots of things we're not going to talk to people about because it's not the time, it's not the place. Maybe they don't have the range, maybe they're not interested, whatever. But constantly reviewing how you're talking to someone and spending a lot of time managing their reactions and how they feel is probably not a good relationship. I don't think any relationship is worth micromanaging. You may have moments where you're walking on eggshells with someone. That's what we said, like, we're looking for patterns, not incidents. I remember I lived with someone a long time ago, and I knew that when I told them I was going to move out, it would have been a thing. And it was a thing. I had to audit what I said and send it to a few people. Does this sound fair? Does this sound kind? Does this sound non-argumentative? But that was an incident. That was not that person's pattern. I just knew they didn't want me to leave, essentially. Is it ideal? Of course not. But I think that that's okay. And I was willing to overlook that for the greater good of the friendship. But someone who you feel like you're constantly doing this with, because everything is a thing, I would say that's a friendship that needs auditing. Okay, so what's next? What do you do? For some friendships, especially where there's an energy imbalance, you're just going to shift the friendship. You're going to keep it casual, keep it surface level. Don't be doing too much. Don't be saying too much. Stop over investing. Match their energy level. True reciprocity in your friendship. Enjoy these connections without expecting like maybe the deepest of bonds, okay? It's the easiest way. It's a load of mental stress off your plate. It is the best way to manage those relationships. For your next tier of relationships, if you feel like things are really transactional, you're going to either decide if it's worth addressing directly or downgrade the friendship. I think you have one honest conversation about something that you've noticed and you stick to the facts. Right? The best way to have a discussion with someone, especially if it's very layered and complex and heated or anything like that, is you stick to the actual facts and then you stick to how you feel. It's not, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. It's just not an effective way to communicate to someone. You have to stick to the facts, like the true facts, not your opinion on the facts. And then you say, this is how I feel about it. This made me feel like this. As Brene Brown always says, this is the story I'm telling in my head. I think that's the best way to deal with it. Eventually, if nothing changes, you're just going to have to downgrade the friendship or let it fade naturally if you want to do that. And then for your deeper friendships where you notice something seriously fractioning here, you may need some distance. And that doesn't necessarily mean a complete break, although it can. I've been on one end of a friendship breakup before. I know people that have had friendship breaks and have been able to come back together. I personally in my life have not seen that happen where the bond is stronger because I think a break is a break. And I think even if you glue it back together, that break is always there because you can't forget things. Yeah. And I think like that for relationships too. I think a break is a break. And sometimes it's hard to glue that back up. So, take that with a grain of salt. And also, if you are going to do a break, you have to know the risks that come with that. And that if you come back together, things may never be the same. And that might be okay for you. I think you got to protect your energy and your emotional well-being when you're dealing with some really key emotional fractures in the relationship. But I think you also have to be radically honest about yourself and what part do you play in this? Because we all play a part, right? A relationship is 50-50 on both sides. Ultimately, you don't owe anyone access to you who makes you feel less than and who makes you feel smaller and who makes you feel bad and who makes you feel unloved and who makes you feel unwanted. And I do feel like that is just the overarching advice for all relationships. And under that parameter, then you work within it. I hope that makes sense. Ultimately, we all have red flags in us. We all do. And we've got some amber ones too. But I want to also encourage you to just look at some of the green flags in your healthy relationships. Is she cool? Does she make you laugh? Does she show up for you? Does she initiate like how you do? You both have, a decent game of ping pong going on to talk or to laugh or to share or to make plans. Is there follow through? Do they remember? Do they care? If they forget, do they apologize? Is there emotional safety? Do you feel like, okay, maybe a little bit of struggles you can share, a little bit of struggles she can share, a little bit of success you can share, a little bit of success she can share without fear or shame attached to that? Is there reciprocal support? The investment feels balanced over time. You don't always have to look for 50-50, and you should not look at your friendships as tit for tat, but deep inside your core that the love is there and the love is followed through in different ways. Advocacy. Can this person speak positive about you when you're not around? You might know, you might not, but what does your gut tell you? And ultimately, bad bitches believe in an abundance mindset. And that's all I'm going to say on that. So if you have some friendships in your life that you're like, okay, I know these are really solid, and I know these I probably need to peel back the curtain a little bit and do a little bit more of an investigation, go through your relationship, like rate it 5 stars from 1 to 5 stars, reciprocity, safety, mutual growth, fun. You want to identify patterns, maybe things that you notice a lot of your friendships fall into. Maybe you have a lot more party friends than you did 5 years ago, and you're like, okay, I would like to change that. Maybe there are a few party friends that you can move into a different tier and you can build on that relationship. If you guys want an episode on expanding your relationships and maybe shifting relationships, let me know. I think that would be a really interesting one. You have to make really good choices for your life and conscious choices. How much energy does each friendship deserve? How much energy do you want to pour into your relationships? And how much energy is being poured into you as well? I think that's really important. And invest wisely. There is a really good quote about how you're lucky in life if you have one true friend. And I think as I get older, there is a lot of truth to that. So, love the people who love you and invest in the people who invest in you. And sometimes that investment is inconvenient, right? It's a whole discourse on TikTok right now about community is inconvenient. And that's true. I have a friend who was in town for a few weeks, recently left, and the last night wanted to go out, wanted to have a good time, and a part of me just wanted to stay home in bed. And it's like, but no. And I literally was telling myself community means inconvenience. Sometimes that means honoring yourself, but sometimes that means getting up, putting on your makeup at 9:30 at night and going outside and spending time with your friend. Sometimes that's what it means. Sometimes that means picking up your friend from the airport who's coming in to see you. Sometimes that means helping your friend with groceries. Sometimes that means cooking extra food because your friend's not feeling well. These are inconvenient things, but this is how bonds are made, and this is how bonds are built, and this is how bonds are maintained. So yeah, remember, this is also not about rejecting people. This is really just about being intentional about where you invest your most precious resource in this life, which is your time and your energy, and also you auditing yourself and figuring out where are some ways that you could be a better friend and also manage your expectations appropriately. Also, don't forget that the goal isn't to become this friendship auditor. That's sounds awful, and you'd probably end up being a really annoying friend. The goal is to develop a clear understanding of what healthy friendships look like for you at this time in your life. So not only can you be that person and create that, but you can also recognize it in others. So I want you to evaluate some of your friendships this week. Look for patterns, not incidents. Maybe have one honest conversation with someone who you feel a bit distant from, but that you really care about. I think that is really mature and can be such a big bond builder. I think that's a beautiful thing. And maybe it doesn't have to be something really lengthy. Maybe it's I haven't seen you in forever and I want to change that. What are you doing next week? Simple. That's 2 lines. And everyone wants to feel wanted, so why not? Obviously, invest in those that invest in you and constantly fill you up, whether it's fill you up with jokes or fill you up with lots of advice, whatever it is. You just want to feel stimulated and poured into, and make sure you are also pouring, and ultimately be the friend that you want to have. Some of the most growth I've experienced have come from friends who are brave enough to have difficult conversations with me. If someone matters to you and you're seeing red flags, consider whether they deserve the gift of your honesty before you consider whether they deserve the consequence of a friendship severed. Very important. Be honest about this respond to things, don't react, like I always say. And unfortunately, not every friendship is meant to last forever, and that can feel really sad, but it ultimately is okay. Every friendship, even the ones that naturally end, can teach us something and often do about ourselves if you're paying attention and you're willing to listen and learn. They teach us about our patterns and what we truly need from connection as time passes. Ultimately, you have to trust your instincts, honor your energy, choose your circle wisely, and love fully. I'll leave you guys with a book recommendation this week. I don't always do that because I just want to make sure it's super relevant. This is high on my list. I haven't read it yet, but it is called Platonic: How the Science of Attachment Can Help You Make and Keep Friends by Marissa G. Franco. She breaks down why some friendships feel effortless while others feel really exhausting, and gives you a lot of like research-backed strategies for building deeper, more secure connections. If you are someone who is into attachment theory, you know I'm a little on it. I think it can be a really good option. She also addresses everything from like social anxiety to jealousy and the art of maintaining long distance connections. So get the book. Let me know if you do. I'm going to order it at least this week maybe on Audible, because I can plow through books on Audible quicker. And maybe I will reference the book in the next episode I do on friendships for the pod. I hope you guys have an amazing week. Did you like this episode? If so, make sure to leave me a gorgeous 5-star review, because I'm a 5-star chick. And if you're subscribed to us on Apple, then give us a follow on Spotify. And if you're subscribed to us on Spotify, then give us a follow on YouTube. And if you're subscribed to us on YouTube, then give us a follow on Apple. You get my drift. I love you guys so much. I hope you had a beautiful month. July is officially done and dusted as of today. Tomorrow is August. What are you going to do? I know everyone is probably planning like their last minute farmer's market, vacations, tanning, whatever, because the craziness of September is about to hit. I don't know what I'm going to do to honor next month and honor the month that has passed. But what I will do right now is close off this episode and give myself another juicy pat on the back for celebrating 25 episodes. And thank you to all of you who have been here with me since mid-Feb, which feels like a million years ago. There's quite a few of you that listen religiously every week, and I love you guys down. Thank you so, so much. You know, I'm super grateful. And to the next 25. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.